Gonna mess with it.
Okay.
All right, we are recording. Thank you for tuning in to Grieving Voices. Today, my guest is Bill Gross. He is a North Dakota native who spent his childhood surrounded by agriculture. Like many farm kids before him, Bill realized at a young age it would not be possible to continue his family's farming legacy due to financial constraints. His parents encouraged him to seek higher education in pursuit of a better life, so Bill went on to attend the University of North Dakota to secure an undergraduate degree in BBA and was later awarded an honorary doctorate degree from Human Letters. During his time at UND, he also secured several pilot ratings and an airline transport pilot certificate. This career path sent him to places around the globe, but Bill's heart never left the farming and ranching community in which he was raised, which is what brings Bill to my podcast to talk to you today about his organization that he started called Farm Rescue. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Victoria, for having me on.
So let's take it from there, from when you left the farming community and pursuing your degree and all of that, and what brings you to the podcast today.
Well, yes, I did leave the farming community. My heart never left it. My parents were not in a position to help any of us children get started in farming. And so they encouraged us to seek higher education, which all of us 5 children did, and is a 4th generation farm now. And we went on our career paths, and myself as an airline pilot for UPS Airlines now for 30 years, flying around the world. I'm speaking to you today from Cologne, Germany. And, you know, that I always believed in helping people, that you should help others in need, and went on mission trips over the years through the church to Croatia, Romania, and such. But I thought there's people right in the United States that need help also. So, you know, I had that thought in my mind all the time, but I didn't know how I could help in the United States. And flying with the co-pilots on long flights, oftentimes 12, 14 hours out over the Pacific Ocean, they would say, "What are you going to do when you retire?" And I was still in my 30s, but I would say that I'm going to be this random good Samaritan, get a large John Deere tractor and help farm families in my native state of North Dakota. And they actually chuckled at that. They thought that was kind of a crazy idea, actually. And I said, you know, it's not so crazy. I envisioned myself showing up at 6 a.m. and telling the farmer that you put fuel and seed in the tractor and planter, and I'll plant a few hundred acres and I'll move on. And people would say there's this good Samaritan going around just planting crops free of charge. And I told a friend of mine years later, even after I had this idea, I hadn't started it yet, that I was going to do it when I retire, a chaplain friend. And him looking at things in a very Christian sense, he says, "Why wait until you retire, Bill? You don't know what tomorrow will bring." And he says, furthermore, instead of being this random good Samaritan, he says, "Isn't farming and ranching a very dangerous occupation?" I said, "It certainly is. It's one of the most dangerous occupations." And he said, "You know, you should have a screening process, you know, to help those that maybe have an injury or illness or such." And then, you know, furthermore, he encouraged me. He said, "You should start a nonprofit." He said, "Instead of you doing it yourself, you should provide an avenue for other people to join in on your dream, on your mission to help farm and ranch families." And so after I left dinner with him and his wife and driving home, just about a 30-minute drive, it all came together to me. I thought, yeah, this is it. I'm going to start Farm Rescue now. I was a single man at the time. I can do this, and there'll be other people that are like-minded, that grew up on a farm, or their ancestors were farmers or ranchers, but they never stayed, but yet they still have a love for it. And I thought, you know, how would we get, those would be the volunteers, right? That people would come back. Some would be retired farmers, some would be younger people that just didn't stay on the farm. And and also that, where would we get funding for it to support a mission like this? And I felt that surely there were businesses and individuals and foundations that they would like to see family farms, continue, and agribusiness is a big business, one of the largest businesses in the United States, that it would be a good thing for them to sponsor a program like this to help farm and ranch families, be it seed companies, banks, or such. And so it all came together. In 2005, I started Farm Rescue. We helped our first case out in Western North Dakota, a young farmer, 32 years old, that had two little children, one less than a year old, got his hand cut off a week earlier in an auger, and we went out and planted. That first year, we helped 10 farm families. And every year since, we've just consistently increased the number of farm families we've helped, not only across North Dakota, but we've expanded our geographical footprint also to 8 states now throughout the Midwest. And this spring, we will help our 1,000th farm family. So when I started the organization, would I have ever thought that we would have helped 1,000 farm families? No, I just thought I was going to be this random Good Samaritan helping a few families around North Dakota, right? But there was a lot of good-hearted people that joined in from all across the United States. We have volunteers that come every spring, summer, and fall, and sponsors and donors that support our mission. And again, I'd like to clarify that we don't give money out to farm families. This is not a handout or such. We call it a hand up. It's for a farm family that's had a major injury, illness, or natural disaster, and they just can't get the work done themselves through no fault of their own. They just had a crisis happen. And so we come in, it's like a big mobile farming operation, and plant, hay, harvest, or even provide livestock feeding assistance until they can get back on their feet. And so we'll be helping our 1,000th case soon. And thanks to all the good-hearted donors and business sponsors and volunteers and media and people like yourself, Victoria, that help us raise awareness of our mission at Farm Rescue so we can help more farm and ranch families and small towns across America.
Do you list the states that you assist on your website? So
Yes,
anyone
we do.
listening?
We assist in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and Illinois.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
You never would have
is.
thought, right?
That's right. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a lot of like-minded people and a altruistic, compassionate mission to help others in a time of need.
How has this changed you, this experience? How has Farm Rescue changed you?
Well, I do have a heart for farming and ranching, of course, like I mentioned. But when you're growing up, like maybe any one of us, yes, our parents just living in the farming community encouraged us to help other people. And I saw my own parents help other neighbors also. But, that's not as prevalent nowadays just because the farms are larger and there's not as many children on the farm. And there just, isn't the resources available to help as many people. So that's where Farm Rescue comes in. But what I want to say is that as you grow up, I think anyone as a teenager or such, you kind of focus on your own accomplishments, or you have goals in your own life, and you get focused on where you are going. And some people learn this sooner than other people. Some people go through their whole life that way, but it made me realize that there is so much more than your own goals and accomplishments in life. Yes, you need to be a productive citizen, but there's a lot of people that you need to help along the way. And when I say along the way, I don't mean that you say that someday when I get to this career level or when I have this much money, then I'm going to help people. No, make it a lifestyle that you help people all along the way. when you're a teenager, when you're in college, when you're an adult, even if things aren't so good for yourself, it all comes around for good. And that's how it has really changed me. It has the rewards I've gotten in starting Farm Rescue, and I still am the chairman of the board, guiding Farm Rescue forward, leading it, that the rewards I've gotten from that are 100-fold from any reward I would have gotten from just focusing on my own life, right? It's truly amazing. So I would encourage people, if they want to help, don't wait till someday, and you don't know where that path will lead you in helping other people, and the rewards will surprise you. Just the gratification in knowing that you're doing something good in life, and the difference you're making in other people's lives has a multiplier effect.
I firmly believe that one way that we can help people to understand, even like depression, right? A way out of depression is by helping people. It makes you feel good. Like, it brings about feel good feelings, right? When you're being of service, you're helping someone else. So even if it's just opening the door, and I think we can just small acts of service. It doesn't have to be starting a nonprofit. We can do it in the smallest of ways that, if you're struggling, can help you to feel better just by helping someone else feel better.
That's
Right?
correct. When you take the focus off of yourself and focus on others, it'll lift both of you up, is just what you're saying, Victoria. And then again, people that, beyond that, the person you're helping, it'll help the people they know also.
Did your parents get to see this come to fruition?
No, my parents never did. My dad died in 2000. I started it in 2005. My mother passed away in May of 2005. She never did. She never did see any farm rescue cases or such during their time on this earth.
Did she know about it though? Because you had started it in 2005, but you had.
Yeah, I may have mentioned it to her. She was in very poor medical health in a hospital and such, and such in the last days of her life. I don't know if she fully comprehended what I had started. So
Well, I'm sure they're very proud of you. They would be
yes,
very proud of you.
that's right.
And can we talk about that maybe the grief that comes about of, the family farm dissipating and not continuing on, and how many farm families find themselves in that situation. And it's that intangible grief that, can continue through the generation, right? Because you, as a child of your parents who had the family farm, I imagine that you kind of carry some of that. And this is your way to come back to the farm in a sense. So can you speak to that a little bit, and maybe what you've seen in the farm rescue experience of helping farmers?
Well, Victoria, that's a very valid point, and that is true. I can speak upon my own family and some of the families that we have helped at Farm Rescue. I'll start with my own family, and that, yes, there's 5 of us children. I was the youngest, and due to financial constraints, none of us were able to start farming. Like I mentioned, the folks were not able to help us. They just didn't have the financial resources to do such. And this family farm of my folks, and now that myself and my brother own, is a multi-generational farm. And I think what I'm saying here holds true for a lot of farm families, that they would like to see their children continue on their legacy, like I said, in a multi-generational farm, but yet they know that maybe they can't financially or it's going to be a great struggle for their children. And they encourage them to go on to seek other careers, or in my case, higher education. And I would encourage anyone to always seek higher education. It just gives you more opportunities. So my parents encouraged that. But of course, they always said, you can always come back, as you can always come back. The children, any one of you are welcome to come back and farm if the farm is still here, because of financial challenges. And, at that time, none of the children of us children came back and farmed. I bought a little bit of land, and so did my brother from my parents. And I remember when a neighbor would stop by, and my dad, there was such pride in his voice, even though he was in his 70s, he'd say, Billy, they used to call me Billy, Billy bought this quarter of land over here. That's all he'd say, so I think it was his glimmer of hope that maybe I would come back and farm, that there was a connection still to the farm and carry on his legacy. But my dad passed away, and my mom, without any of us children truly coming back and, farming the land as a whole. And I could see that was, it was, I won't say it disturbed my dad or parents, but it gave them grief. I mean, I think there's a form of grief, what I'm trying to say, and in all farm families, when they don't see their legacy go on. They maybe took over the farm from their parents, and then they worked hard and raised a family. And then now I see it so often, the children go on to another career, and they're not able to continue that legacy. And I can only think, going through my father and mother's mind, and along with any farm family, that maybe they failed somehow. Maybe had they done things differently, they would have had different, financial resources to help the children, or maybe they didn't foster the farming legacy enough or such, or maybe they were too hard on their children. They didn't want to, work hard, as that hard going on. I'm sure there's all kinds of thoughts that go through a farm or ranch family, and there is a grief. I'm 100% positive, especially my dad had grief in feeling like it was his doing that the family farm legacy of the multi-generational farm wasn't going to continue. And I see that in cases we help at Farm Rescue also. They don't say it, but I can see it in between the lines. So it really is just the mom and pop who's there trying to make a go of it. But there may not be a long-term future for the farm, and there's sadness with that. And plus, nowadays, there isn't as many children, and the children go on. It can become overwhelming very easily. First they had this big family working and so on, and then now they're all gone. It almost forms an environment of solitude, of that you're alone. Yes, you may have your spouse and such, but you're alone there. That's the nature of their work, right? They're prideful, independent people. God bless them. A lot of farmers and ranchers. I mean, people wouldn't want to do that type of work. Most people in the United States out there in the elements, in the cold weather, and all that work day and night. But God bless them. But it is a work a lot of times in solitude, and then with financial challenges and such. Maybe they took on a lot of debt over the years, and now they're struggling to pay that. It can become overwhelming, is what I'm saying. And we see that, and we have helped in mental health cases at Farm Rescue also. It just becomes overwhelming. And we have seen suicides, of course, and that's a upward trend in the farming community. And what I'm saying is, it quickly can overwhelm a person, this grief of being alone, your children are gone, that maybe think you've failed this, and the land is going to be gone that's been in the farm family for generations, and you're alone, and there's no way out, or that's how it always is, right? When people take some action, be it in drugs or suicide or such, they feel like there's not a way forward. So when Farm Rescue comes in, we've had many people tell us that it just lifted the burden off of them, and they had a new outlook on life. And even the fact that all these volunteers came and were around them, and the camaraderie, and that they see a way forward, has made all the difference in them. Not only just getting the physical work done, the planting or harvesting for their livelihood, but for their emotional well-being also.
Farm Rescue gives them hope.
Yes. We
And I
like to
think,
say sometimes we plant seeds of hope.
oh, that's wonderful. That should be your slogan. Yes, because here's the thing. It's like when you think of the farmer, right? When I just living in Grain Belt, North Dakota, right? I see it in my day job is in crop insurance. So I see it, they're independent people that have a really difficult time asking for help. And I think it can be very humbling when you see this army of support coming in the form of combines and tractors and the equipment and things to help them. It can be very humbling. And I think that alone, it's like people do care. There is hope. I think yes, you plant seeds of hope. I 1000% agree with that. And, to kind of circle back what you had shared earlier, it's this intangible grief, right? That most people don't have the language for that to express what they're feeling about the legacy not continuing, the farm family not continuing, things like that. And we're all, whether we're farmers or not, we can be one medical setback from homelessness. I mean, there are so many veterans that have become homeless because of mental health challenges or physical or, medical issues. You had mentioned before we started to record that your dad was a World War II veteran. He didn't get a college education. I have a really soft spot for veterans. And so just thinking about your dad and the toil, right? The day and night toil for him to build what he did for the family, and to not see that. I imagine that, like you said, there was some heartbreak in that. But also pride too, for as your every one of you went and got your degree and pursued, a career, right? So it wasn't all, you know what I mean? Like I just think we're all in this, we can all be fragile in that we aren't guaranteed what's going to happen tomorrow. And so whether it's Farm Rescue that comes in to help us, or even the neighbor, I think the main thing is that we have a hard time asking for help, and help is out there, whether it is your neighbor or whether you're not a farmer and you just had, you're the breadwinner of the family can't work anymore due to cancer or whatever the case is. I think there's a lot of organizations and support out there, nonprofits like yours. And that's why I'm devoted this season of Grieving Voices to highlight these nonprofits that are doing amazing things, that are bringing hope to people in times of great distress. So thank you for following that spark of an idea, and that for that friend who shared his wisdom with you, because Farm Rescue wouldn't be here today, right? Otherwise.
That's right, and you really said it well, Victoria. The grief is not spoken by these farm families or a lot of people. You don't have to be a farmer. You can see it in them. It's an unspoken, it's there, it's deep. And it humbles them when we come and help. they're just so grateful. They're not the type of people to ask for help. And a lot of people are that way, of course. But I think you said how this has changed me. Another way it's changed me is it's made me realize that we all need help through life at one time or another, to one extent or another. There's no shame in asking for help. It's actually a good thing. I view it as a form of strength, actually, that you need to know what your limitations are when you're down and out, and when the appropriate time is to ask for help. And I think a person that can see that actually is displaying a form of strength. They're not only asking for help, but they're showing that they're using good judgment. And so it's made me a much more humble person, and compassionate person. And also that yeah, through the grace of God, we're just, we're one, any one of us are one step away from something devastating happening to us. It could be cancer, it could be a car accident, it could be anything. And the sooner you realize that in life, how fragile life is, and the more you appreciate life and want to help other people going through a challenging time. And lastly, I'll say, sometimes I'm asked, Bill, what inspires you to keep doing farm rescue, to keep going on? And I say, it's actually all the people that come from around the United States, all the other volunteers, and all the people that I see that are so passionate about what we do, and that they've come forward with a good heart to help our mission. How can you not get caught up in that and just build upon that? So yes, I mean, it's inspiring to see other people help others. It really is. It inspires yourself to do the same. And we're going to help a lot more people at Farm Rescue, and we're going to continue to grow Farm Rescue, and we're going to do as much good as we can. As far as I'm concerned, in my lifetime, we're going to touch as many families as we can, and the families and their children and such, and maybe we open doors by helping that family. Maybe their children can now go to higher education, and they go on to do things, like I did, that they wouldn't have been able to do before. So you just never know. You'll never live to see all the dividends of your good works in your life.
I always say there's ripples of grief, but I think there's also ripples of hope.
Yes.
So just as you mentioned, the children see it too. And who knows how the impact that has on them, which guarantee, bar none, it does, because when you lift that burden of the parents, you are lifting the burden of the children.
Yes.
As well. Do you see, so most of the farm families that you do help, it's generally a medical crisis of some sort? I mean, because it is one of the most dangerous occupations, as you mentioned.
The majority of our cases are medical, like any one of us. There's a lot of medical things that can happen to you. We see a lot of cancer cases, both for the husband or the wife, or we even had some cancer cases in the children, unfortunately, of young children. But we see a lot of cancer, and every type of medical thing you can imagine any one of us could have, brain tumors, cancer, broken legs, arms, severed limbs, car accidents, equipment accidents, a lot of medical and injuries. Those are of course, the injuries and the illnesses are by far the majority of our cases. And then we have a small percentage that are natural disasters, right? So we help out also if there's like a drought. And I think we hauled a few years ago 300 semi-loads of hay into Western North Dakota during a drought to help ranchers and such. Hay that was donated all over the United States. And then we have a fleet of semi trucks and mobilized it. And so in droughts, in floods, wildfires, we've helped down in Nebraska and Kansas, and all sorts of, tornadoes, of course, places destroyed by tornadoes and such. So any kind of natural disaster is somewhere in our 8-state region. There's always a natural disaster every year, it seems like. So that's a percentage of our cases also.
So in discussing how it may be difficult for people to ask for help, if someone listening to this, a farmer or friend of a farmer or something, and they're going through a mental health challenge, you don't have to have a limb severed or you don't have to have a terrible diagnosis. Maybe you want to just be able to take some time to focus on yourself and work through your mental health challenges. That's where you can come into, right? I mean, I don't want people to think that they have to have this, like, oh, well, my situation isn't as bad as theirs. You know what I mean? We can kind of have that mentality too, where we compare our despair to others. And I just want,
You are exactly correct, Victoria. We oftentimes get farm families that call us and they say, well, I don't know if I should apply. I'm just calling, but surely you have people that are, more seriously or worse off than I am. And one example I'll give you of how prideful and independent farm families are. A farmer years ago called us out. He was south of Dickinson, North Dakota, and he was during harvest time, in the midst of harvest, and he was inquiring about our program, and he said those very words, but boy, you must have a full schedule helping people, and there must be people more in serious conditions than me. And I said, so what happened to you? He says, oh, I got my hand cut off. He says, a few days ago in a combine. And I said, you got your hand cut off, and you feel there's other people that you shouldn't apply for assistance that have more serious things. So, man, it just really goes to show that how prideful and independent these people are. And yes, they always think that there's someone else that is more deserving than them. So yeah, we don't want anyone to think that. You can call Farm Rescue, talk to us, and yes, we help in mental health issues, mental illness, mental health. You can call us, or a family member that's listening to this. Oftentimes it's the person who has, is dealing with a mental health challenge. They're not the person who's going to call. It's usually a family member. It may be a spouse, it may be a child, or it may be a neighbor or such, or friend. So go ahead and call us. Everything is kept confidential. And yes, we have helped in many mental health cases where the person with the mental health issue just needed some downtime. Maybe they need to go for some counseling or treatment. And we free up that time by getting the work done so they can get back to a good state of mind. And so, yes, we do help in those cases.
and I just think of the impact that has on their mental health. Again, just circling back to the planting the seeds of hope. So I think that's, yeah, I love that you include that too in your assistance for farmers. Because especially, like you touched on it earlier, but the suicide rate is climbing in the farming community, and I see it just in my area. So do you find that it's older population, or is it getting younger and younger, you think?
I used to think it was just the older population, but what I've seen over the years at Farm Rescue is it's becoming a younger population where we see suicides also. And we cover an 8-state region. So, a lot of times, like you said, someone knows of someone around their area where they live. But when you look at it on a bigger footprint, we see a fair number of suicides, unfortunately, in a larger geographical area. And it's a younger group. It may be a younger farmer, unfortunately and sadly for anyone, but sometimes it may, nowadays you hear it in the national news and stuff, it may be one of their children. Through bullying or whatever other reason and such. It's just sad the whole way around. I can hardly talk about it, here with someone's trying to call here, but I apologize.
That's okay. I'll edit it out.
Okay, maybe I should start that over. So, yes, Victoria, it's a younger demographics nowadays that we see the suicides, be it a younger farm family that one of the parents, or sadly nowadays, you hear about it in the national news. Also, it may be a child, maybe a teenager or such. So, unfortunately, I think in our society nowadays, again, people don't see a way forward, be it as a young person or as a 40-year-old or such, and it just becomes overwhelming, and they don't feel like there's anyone to turn to, or that there's not help, or they don't speak up. And I think that's a big message we need to get through to people, that there is always help, there is always hope. You may not feel there isn't, but there's always that sliver, that glimmer of hope. Someone will help you through a difficult situation. You should never ever turn to the thoughts of suicide. And so there's always help.
Did you ever recognize your dad going through things that maybe he didn't even talk about? You kind of knew that he was maybe, going through some stuff. I mean, being a World War II veteran, I can't imagine what he saw, right? I'm a veteran myself, but I'm just curious how you saw that maybe translating into the way that he lived his life and through farming, and how maybe that showed up for him, and maybe it didn't. Maybe he was very good at hiding it. I think just being where I live, they call it the Iron Curtain. Very German, stoic German. We don't ask for help. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of mentality. And so I just, wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit, of just in the Midwest in general. I mean, that's just kind of, we live in the northern climate. Look at where we live. It's like you have to be kind of, we're in a snow apocalypse right now. It's like it's just never ending, it seems. But with the cold and the snow and all of that, so it kind of hardens you, I think, just living where we live. So
it does. Yes, my ancestry is German with the last name Gross, and my dad being in World War II, and yes, he was a hardy individual, and grew up in the area that you're talking about. You have to be and so on. It's not an easy life, no matter if you're a person working in town or out on the farm. It's just the geographical area lends to some challenges that you don't normally have. But from World War II, my dad was a very quiet person, like a lot of veterans, and didn't really talk about things he saw. And toward the end of his life, he talked about a couple occasions where, my dad, and we didn't know this until someone looked at his military orders later and told us. So my dad was the equivalent of like a sniper, like special forces reconnaissance, and he would go ahead of the front line and conduct his mission, and sometimes by himself, or a very small team, and then they would come back to the front line. And he talked about how they went around and I don't know all the details, but went ahead of the front line. And then when he came back, his buddies were all killed that were on the front line there. And I saw my dad cry over that and such. I think he felt responsible that he wasn't there to help them, right? And so, but yes, a hearty person, and wouldn't talk about hardship, should we say.
And I think it comes back to that solitude aspect you were speaking to earlier. And, it can be very easy to isolate yourself in your own feelings. And, because like you said, farming can be a very solid, you're a solo experience, right? It's just you and nature, and you're just a lot of alone time, right? And so I think, what do you do with all that alone time is think and think and think and think, right? And so I think that can be not the best situation for some people. And so I think just being able to finding someone that you can talk to, and feeling that it's okay.
You have a lot of time on the farm, like I said, in that solitude to rethink, run things through your mind over and over. And like any one of us, you don't want to have regrets in life. Regrets are a hard thing. There's most things in life you don't have a redo. You can't change them. And you have to find a way to move forward and deal with that.
And with your organization, you plant seeds of hope. That's one way that people can experience the love and support of their community. So I
Yes.
encourage anyone who is a doubter if this applies to them or could help them to rethink that solo mentality, and ask for help.
That's right. That's right. There is always someone that cares and will help, and never think you're alone, be that a teenager, a child, or a middle age or elderly person. There's plenty of people that have love and compassion and want to help and will help make things better.
I will take that as your one tip for a hurting heart.
That's right.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about Farm Rescue? Anything you have coming up? If applications are always open, or do you have an application window for a time frame? Like, how does all that work?
People can apply any time of the year, but yes, we're accepting planting applications for the spring, and people should just contact us at farmrescue.org or at 701-252-2017. They can call and ask questions and apply, or you can even nominate it doesn't have to be for yourself. If you know of someone, like we said, that needs help, be it a neighbor, be it a friend, you can nominate anonymously. Even you don't even need to tell us your name. Just tell us who you think might need some help, that they're going through a challenging time, and could you please reach out to them? And we won't mention your name, and we've helped many cases that way also. A lot of times a farm family will not come and ask us for help, but when we contact them and just say someone in the community said you're going through a challenging time, well, then that farm family will open up and they'll say, yes, by the way, we are. And it opens the door for us to help them. So I highly encourage people to refer or nominate a family that's going through a difficult time. And in the vast majority of those cases, we end up helping that farm family.
I love that. I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that. And I will put the phone number and the website in the show notes, how people can reach Farm Rescue. And are you looking to expand further?
We are, as funds allow, and through donors and sponsors and such, and as long as there's a legitimate need, yes, we are looking to do that. But we always need funding for just what we have, the irons in the fire right now, to help throughout North Dakota and South Dakota and Minnesota and the states we're in. And if anyone wishes to donate, they can donate online securely, or you can mail in a check to Farm Rescue, P.O. Box 28, Horace, North Dakota, 58047. And, the board members are all volunteers. We work primarily with volunteers, have a very small staff. We use our funds efficiently. And we don't hand them out to people. Like we said, we do it just to get the job done. And many places have said, Farm Rescue is a true nonprofit, and we would greatly appreciate any donations to help our cause and mission, so we can help more farm families.
Thank you so much for sharing about Farm Rescue. I'm so glad that I followed my nudge to bring Farm Rescue to Grieving Voices to share your mission, because I feel like it is a beautiful gift that is available to people where I call home in North Dakota. So thank you so much for sharing today, and thank you for being my guest.
Well, thank you, Victoria. Thank you for having me as a guest, and thank you for what you do to help people go through grieving times, and to show that there is hope, and to talk about it. What you're talking about is oftentimes things that people don't want to talk about, right? So thank you for bringing that to the forefront.
This is my mission and my work. So thank you for being a part of my mission too. And remember, when you unleash your heart, you unleash your life. Much love.